Good morning. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning on Monday the 9th of September 2019, and I'm talking here about this particular document that I sent to one of our prospective client nations. Right, can you see the heading? Top Secret Sustainable Nation Building Industry Conference. Right, now this conference is being live streamed from the top of a skyscraper on the 26th of this month, a couple of weeks away. And I sent it yesterday, the first one, to one particular nation that we're inviting as a delegate to participate in this very first Sustainable Nation Building Industry Conference, but it's top secret. And their response, the leader that I sent it to, his response was he panicked. He immediately contacted the Speaker of the House in their nation to contact the Prime Minister to insist that they immediately remove their nation from anything to do with Agenda 21 and the United Nations Sustainable Development for the 21st century. Now, why would they panic like this after receiving this wonderful invitation? Well, there's a good reason, right? Because during this particular conference, we're revealing a new rebellion starting up around the planet. At the moment, last month, they had the Extinction Rebellion for climate change. But you see, climate change is the third greatest threat to humanity. The second greatest threat is Agenda 21, the United Nations Agenda 21, which you fools all follow with the United Nations Intergovernmental Climate Change Panel and their so-called humanitarian and environmental projects, and they've elevated themselves as the world government at the helm of humanitarian and environmental projects. But when you watch the Rosa Kior YouTube video, the 20-minute video where she exposes Agenda 21 Exposed is the title. Check it out, it's 20 minutes long, and you will find why this particular government panicked when I sent them this invitation. Because during this particular conference, we're revealing what the Agenda 21 rebellion is, right? And this is a rebellion that's going to make the whole world change, because it's driven by an invisible and indestructible dark network criminal organisation that I was a co-founder of back in 1973 when we had the Foxton Boys gang in New Zealand. We transformed Foxton into New Zealand's first gangland capital, where it became known as the town where all the gangs came from, because it wasn't actually an ordinary gang, it was the world's first invisible and indestructible dark network criminal organisation. And when you listen to our podcast titled The Truth About 9/11, which reveals our connections and with Wall Street, with the debenture trading bank, which financed all the wars since the inception of the Federal Reserve Bank in America, financed both sides of the wars, and also it was done through the wealthy elite Jews from around the world that financed all the wars. And that's our connection, one of our connections into the big world of business, and also in the big world of finance and commerce, we are very, very well connected, and also in the world of sustainability, which we are the world leaders. Now, I visited Jones Day last week and talked to one of the partners about them providing myself with protection, legal protection, as I reveal who the Stark Network criminal organisation is and how they plan to cut up every railway track on the planet that carries coal. Now, I don't know if this sinks in to your brain what that actually means. They're cutting up the first lot here in Australia, which will prevent any coal getting exported around the world. Australia provides 30% of the world's coal for the manufacturing hubs of the world in China and India, with 30% of the world's coal being unable to be exported because they've derailed all the coal trains and blown up the viaducts. So how do you export coal into the manufacturing hubs of the world? And how does Apple, the so-called trillion-dollar company, which is a load of rubbish, they're not the first one, they're way back. There's heaps of other trillion-dollar companies out there. So Apple is going to be going bust in the next 6 months, because 90% of Apple's products are manufactured in China. If China has no coal to run its primary industries, its blast furnaces for transforming iron ore into steel and aluminium bauxite into aluminium, there goes every industry in China that uses aluminium and steel, including the automobile industries, which are 30% of the GDP in most countries. So you can kiss goodbye to your economy once they cut those railway tracks up. The drop saws have actually been positioned using their sleeper cells and near the railway tracks, so they only have to rock up there, pull the drop saws out and cut the tracks up, and as the Maori rappers will be rapping their songs, which they've already been developing in the studios, and they'll be rapping right beside the train track as the trains go flying off the rails. That's going to grab global media attention, and it's going to make those rappers famous overnight, right? Because that is one crazy thing to do, to be standing beside a railway track as the train is hurtling off the rails. Just like the one did back in January, which was the first of the railway tracks that were cut up by the underworld, as a demonstration for our institutional investors that are backing us with this project here, right? The world's first Sustainable Nation Building Industry Conference, which is being live streamed using virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality and hologram technologies to beam our speakers in and famous music superstars, everybody straight into the top of the skyscraper, and then we can live stream straight around the world using On24 and other organisations. So any interference where governments or law enforcement agencies want to shut down On24, they're going to be for a rude awakening, because the moment they do that, they'll have their NBN cables cut up in the nations that try pulling off that stint. So this is the real world, folks. This is the underworld from New Zealand. I was a co-creator of the Foxton Boys gang. We were the first invisible and indestructible dark network criminal organisation coming out of New Zealand. We disappeared back in the 70s as our boys fled New Zealand around the world and got into all the underworld organisations and right up there with the organised crime. So they have sleeper cells across Australia. The thing about the Foxton Boys gang is there was no gang leader, there never has been. There's no hierarchical infrastructure, there is no gang patch, there is no headquarters complex that we ever had, there is no insignia, there's no contacts that you can contact, there is no gang patch or anything. So it's invisible, it's indestructible, You don't know who the original members were because we never actually came from Foxton. We came in from other parts of New Zealand, and we brought all the gangs in with us, which formed the coalition of 7 gangs which were invisible and indestructible. So if you have no gang patch, if you have no gang headquarters, if you have no gang leader, and you have no gang hierarchical infrastructure, and you have no nation that you belong to, because the members of the original members of the Foxton Boys gang were anti-marriedom, so the Maori leaders have got no influence on these gangsters, and also neither has the New Zealand politicians, and they're spread around the world anyway. So I am the original Mick Jagger from Foxton. There's nothing ever been written about me because no one knows what happened to me. I was a master of disappearing. I used 14 different names. I've blended into many different cultures, and over the 45 years that I got away from the Foxton Boys gang and disappeared. So the fact that I'm back and I'm coming out of hiding to explain that yes, I am the original Mick Jagger from Foxton. I am not involved in the Foxton Boys gang, which is now, we're calling them the Maori Triads, because there's 3 Maori organisations involved, criminal organisations involved in it, and I'm not about to reveal who they are or what they are. So just they have no name for it, because that's a part of the game. You don't have a name for your organisation, no one can identify you or track you down. So for the sake of the media, I'm calling them the Maori Triads. We're just copying off our brothers over there in Asia. These are the Maoris, these are far worse. So anyway, I needed to come out in the open because I am the founder of the Sustainable Nation Building industry, and I'm also the chairman of this top secret Sustainable Nation Building Industry Conference, which is going to create major changes around the world. So for you media companies, you are playing a very, very dangerous game if you want to cover these stories without my permission, because the Maori Triads is not one organisation that you ever come across or challenge. And this is why there are no photographs of us original leaders, and the media doesn't want to publish anything about us because they know that the media moguls, the editors and the CEOs and CFOs will have their families kidnapped and processed in a treatment centre, which I don't intend to tell you what is going to happen in there to the entire dynasty of the media mogul when his entire family is kidnapped. Hence the reason I had to go and see Jones Day about providing legal protection for me as I reveal what this very, very dangerous Maori Triads organisation is about and what they're doing in cutting up all the railway tracks to crash the global financial system, and then every 3 days they'll be cutting up another 20 to put another 20 derailments, coal train derailments online through all the social media websites to keep constant attention, global attention on Agenda 21, right? Because Agenda 21 is a threat to every criminal organisation on the planet, hence the reason that they're all coming in behind the Maori Triads, operating inside the dark web. They're linked by tribal roots. They have a shared purpose to destroy every nation of those 179 nations that Rosa Keogh talks about that are involved in Agenda 21, which is not about sustainability. It's about population, a depopulation. It's about depopulating humanity by 6 billion people, which is you and me and all the underworld organisations. And having come from the underworld, I know for a fact you do not threaten the families of the underworld and think you are going to continue living or are continue in doing business, or are not going to get your family kidnapped and delivered to a treatment centre. And when I say your family, these boys will take your grandparents or the grandparents, husband's wife, the husband, all the children, all the siblings, and the grandchildren, and process them in a treatment centre. And when you listen to our podcast called The Truth About 9/11, you'll know who we are connected to inside Wall Street and the debenture trading bank. And for all of you Jews in Wall Street, you know that I'm telling the truth, don't you? Straight away, the moment I mentioned debenture trading bank and the way you financed all the wars. And us Marys know all about it. And it's in the podcast. The Truth About 9/11 is going to create massive divisions in America. It's going to destabilise America when that podcast is out there, and you've got all the underworld organisations. They're going to start cutting up your NBN cables and everything. And when the baby shootings start, you are going to be horrified. So, as I say, the Agenda 21 rebellion is very, very real. And if you don't believe me, watch my video. Go to Hemi Newman, Famous Mick Jagger, on YouTube. Watch my videos, particularly watch the video called BHP Bulletin Train Derailment Cover-Up, because that was the first of the railway tracks to be cut up, and the first train that was derailed, so that we could notify our institutional investors, our environmentally friendly investors, that it's going to happen. That the Agenda 21 rebellion is not small talk. It's not rubbish. It's very, very real. That was the first of the railway tracks to be cut up. Now, the underworld that were responsible for doing that came to me and said, yeah, we did that, and we're going to cut the NBN cable up next. And I said, come on, you fools. You know the Marys are supposed to do that. They've already positioned all the drop saws beside the railway tracks, ready to cut them up in November. So why the heck do you want to shoot the gun and cut that damn railway track up before all the rappers fly in and cut them all up with the drop saws? You're idiots. Yeah, if the Marys cut them up and fly out same day, they go back to New Zealand, upload all the videos and claim responsibility for it. Not a damn thing the Australian government can do to arrest them, is there? But they can arrest you lot, you idiots. I got stuck under them. Why beat the gun? But, you know, as it is, they're beating the gun, gave a clear warning to our institutional investors who we notified to sell up your assets in Australia, sell up all your stocks in BHP Billiton, Rio Tinto, Fortescue Metals Group, and also in Hancock Mining, who they are really keen to cut up all their tracks. So, hence the reason I had to go to Jones Day, the world's biggest legal company, to get protection about the things that I'm saying. So, at the end of the day, if they do arrest me, I have been notified by the Mary Triads the moment they arrest me, or kill any member of my family. They're going to cut the NBN cable up in Australia, and it runs through one of our properties. Every 500 metres there's a sign that says optic fibre network, optic fibre cable, do not dig here. So they know where the cable is, and there's a lot of places they can cut it up. So that's in Western Australia, because it came in under the ocean, $1 billion cable come under the ocean from Singapore. A Singaporean company brought it in, and then it was rolled out across Australia. Now, the person that actually hooked up all the ISPs to the cable, or to the what they call tunnels of the cable, was Steve Brown, who I set up to get that particular contract to hook up all those ISPs, including Telstra, and iiNet and all the other big telcos. So we know what it's all about, and I also know because the deal went down in my corporate office, and I know how the internet works, which none of the big tech companies know how it works, right? But I know how it works. So, and they gave me the secrets. So that's the situation. If the NBN cable is cut up here in Australia, that's going to take down all government infrastructure, digital infrastructure, all corporate infrastructure, the Australian Stock Exchange, all the police database systems, you name it, she's all down. So they won't attack me, but they did attack me back in 12 months ago when the Rothschilds and their central bank here, which is called the Federal Reserve Bank, seized my corporate bank account to halt me in bringing the sustainable nation building industry to market. They seized my corporate bank account just after I signed up a lease for one of the top floors of a skyscraper. The end result was I had to lay off my staff, relocate to my home in Maylands, and then I also had all my assets seized, including my automobile. So I wasn't very happy about that, and then my brother passed away, so I went to the funeral, and guess who was there? All the underworld, because my brother was one of the original members of the Foxenboy gang, and the married triads were there at the funeral. And I had avoided them for 45 years, but after meeting up with them, I told them about what the Rothschilds did by seizing my corporate bank account, halting our Indigenous people's learning network from rising to power, from helping Indigenous peoples all around the world how to rebuild their communities, how to develop sustainable villages, to repatriate their people back into the beautiful, pristine, remote wilderness areas on the lands of the Indigenous peoples, and how to create resources security. So after they seized my corporate bank account, I told the members of our original Foxton Boys gang, and they made a plan. I also introduced them to the creator of the dark web. When you look at my videos, you'll see a green wall. The green wall was painted by the creator of the dark web, and yeah. So I hooked her up with the Foxton Boys, and they developed the plan, which is this rebellion, Agenda 21 rebellion, the cutting up of all the railway tracks and the cutting up of the NBN cables. So there you go. When you want to attack a member of the original Foxton Boys gang, the Maori Triads, then you can expect really, really bad repercussions. Now, I've had nothing to do with them for 45 years. I've avoided them. As I said, I used 14 different names to remain invisible, and I still have nothing to do with them, except for the fact that I'm providing them with equity in a couple of our world regional companies, and in exchange they're providing security, right? Because no nation is going to want to arrest me, and I'm not, by the way, I do not have a criminal record. I've never had a criminal record, except for lots of parking fines and speeding fines because I had a heavy foot. So otherwise I have no criminal record whatsoever, whereas most notorious gangsters and underworld criminals do. I do not, and that's another story. So at the end of the day, I've brought in Jones Day to provide legal protection as I put this out there, and as we promote our Sustainable Nation Building Conference for live streaming to our prospective client nations, and as we transform their nations from high consumption, fossil fuel and automobile based economies into low consumption, service and information based economies, and therefore they have no reliance on fossil fuels or automobiles, because we use the rivers as the main infrastructure and the oceans as the main transport infrastructure, monorails and compact communities running off the located on the monorail system. So there we have, folks. I'm just going to cut you off here. I've gone a little bit long. It's gone 25 minutes, but that's giving you an introduction to what we're doing, and I'll do another video.